Good evening. You're flying with Pod Squadron podcast. All rings report in. This is Andy, Pod Job, standing by.
This is Tracy, Pod Tracer, standing by.
And we'll be joined by Lexi in...
Whoa, right now!
Sign in, Lexi.
We're here.
Pod Lexi. Okay. And of course, Jason is not here this week. He's feeling a bit under the weather. But we are all ships are to attack formation. Mission objectives to talk about the Star Wars movies, streaming, animation, books, themed experiences, and your art and inspiration from a galaxy far, far away. Today's flight plan includes the second arc of Star Wars Andor. This is episodes 4, 5, and 6, particularly 5 and 6, because we haven't talked about those yet. We did cover episode 4 a little bit a couple weeks back. And for all of you out there, all com channels are open. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Find us on YouTube. Like and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you know when we have new content. But first, I'll be your squad leader for today. I'm Andy Lowe, a.k.a. the Chinese pirate, director, storyteller, puppeteer, performer, and fight choreographer. On my wing is Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy, also known as Hot Nerd Girl, also known as Just Got My Second Booster, put it in my veins.
How are you hanging in there?
That's how she's hanging.
Yeah.
And on my other wing is Lexi.
Hi guys, Lexi. You guys can find me on Instagram at Pharaoh Geek Aesthetic. Occasionally I do post.
And like I said, Jason is not with us today, but you can look for Beyond Forever Studios online anywhere where you're checking out the social medias. But today we are getting into Andor. Let's get right into this. I I I I'm kind of loving
Use
the
your
show.
words.
That's how flabbergasted I am. Um, yeah. Quick general, like without getting into specifics. Quick impressions. Tracy, go.
Well, I think that anybody who's been waiting for action to start is hopefully getting their wishes fulfilled at this point, because it's been, and especially episode 6 was very action packed. So, and very visually stunning. So hopefully it's scratching that itch for the folks who need instant gratification and less world building.
Lexi, how about you? Quick hot takes without getting into too many details.
Surprise, surprise, Skeen was sketchy. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, saw that coming. And I really loved the depth that you got to see with why is it right now that I'm blanking out? I'm okay, you know what? I just had it. But their informant on the inside, seeing him interact more.
Gorn.
Right.
Gorn. There we go. I was like having trouble.
I will not forget that because it's a Star Trek alien.
Yes.
There we go. Yeah. Thank you for pulling my ass out of the fire there. It was really great. I loved seeing him kind of have to. You didn't really get to see him much undercover before, and I really enjoyed that personally. It was like more character moments that stood out for me, because Tracy kind of already talked the other points that I was talking. So, yeah.
My hot take also is, I mean, still again some amazing visuals. Even just subtle scenes that are just like single shots in the way they're using silhouette, what is lit, what is not lit. Again, more of the what's in the foreground, what's not in the foreground. The other thing too, the way the storytelling basically feels free to take its time. Like there are a number of points in these last 2 episodes where I just felt like they just, they're in the middle of the mission and they're going to take a hard stop just to let characters talk about how they're feeling about stuff and monologue and and fill in exposition, but every bit of exposition is still tied to character moments.
I'm really worried that Nemec is gonna die.
Oh wait, are you not up through 6?
Oh, I mean, yeah, but like the whole like just his whole like thing where he said I don't know how you get any sleep, right? And then well, we know, but that kind of, I went, oh no, and he's like, you'll sleep when it's done. I'm like, no, don't say that. And
yeah, I mean, wait, okay, sorry, Lexi, you did watch up through episode 6.
I did. I just didn't get to do a rewatch.
Okay, got it.
You saw a doctor with 4 arms, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So that said, we are about to get into spoiler territory. So if you have not seen it, we want you to experience it the way the filmmakers have intended. So please go watch that and then come back and join us here. Okay, let's get into some of the nitty gritty here. Actually, Rodney, do you have anything you want to add? I know you're having a lot of feels about the show as well.
I'm just continuing to be super, super impressed by everything overall. But the 2 things that really stand out to me are the writing and the cinematography.
Yeah.
There like in episode 6, there's genuine breathtaking shots. Like I was just like, oh shit, that's amazing, And then the writing, just like you said, very show don't tell. Very great lines where it's the economy of words and it's still just telling everything.
The freedom to do both, though, right?
Yeah.
There's moments of show don't tell, and there's a lot of moments where it's just a lot of telling. It's just monologuing and soliloquizing and going. I mean, God. I mean, one of my favorite moments in these 2 episodes is Nemec trying to rationalize in his head the moral quandary of taking on mercenaries, right? And he goes through this whole acrobatics, intellectually about how do I justify this? How do I reconcile
Yes.
this with my manifesto and with my beliefs and what I believe to be morally true and what justifies this rebellion? And he goes through all this acrobatics to justify it, and Andor follows up with, "You're wrong," because they don't care. They don't even care enough to make this kind of a moral leap. So none of it matters.
And I think that brings up another thing that was really impressing me was that, and I think I wrote this in our notes, I don't remember any of the other Star Wars properties dealing with greater themes like you just said.
Yeah.
Right? The themes of like rebellion, these deeper moral quandaries, the common man versus the behemoth. It's always been about the Force versus the dark side and all these other things, but like they haven't really explored those types of themes, at least to my memory and knowledge, and not even to this sort of visceral way.
I mean, not in this kind of detail, but I mean, I feel like like even Tracy's talked about how Lucas has been quoted about how he envisioned like the rebellion. What is the quote, Tracy? That Lucas kind of envisioned the heroes as kind of his analog, like the Emperor was Nixon. Right?
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Or maybe it was you, Lexi. Maybe was it you who?
She had a great quote. I was the one who mentioned that he had kind of modeled, the Emperor and his regime after, Nixon and keeping secrets, all that. But I mean, I agree with you. I think this gets back to the heart of the original trilogies, the scenes with the Senate where they're talking about. And even a lot of the material in Clone Wars, with Padme, where she's trying to deal with these very complex socio-political issues that are not just country to country, but planet to planet.
I mean, I would, and of course, I'm sure I'll take a lot of shit for this, but I would also say I felt you had little bits of an attempt of this in The Last Jedi. Oh, God, cover. But I mean, particularly, kind of talking about the systems that, a fascist imperial regime takes to kind of basically disassociate, these levels of using corporatism as a tool to dilute and destroy cultures, kind of the effects of colonialism as a tool of warfare. There's some great stuff with the just the long soliloquizing of the chief imperial guy who's kind of talking about how, oh God, the locals smell. I hate these goat pelts, but we do this anyways, and it makes them more pliable, and we just set up more factories for them to work in, and they end up enacting the destruction of their own planet, which is like, yep. That's exactly how this works.
That's how that shit works. But okay, so now that we're not too worried about being spoilery and people have been forewarned, what I was worried about with Nemec was that he was going to go down like Gorn did, like in a firefight, and that we'd have some heartbreaking like Cassian being like, like, do I get to go to sleep now? Yeah, go to sleep, buddy. Like, I mean, who knows? That might still happen. Like the doctor might not save him, but.
Well, I think it's I mean, spoiler, but I think it's pretty clear where that ends, right?
Yeah, where that ends.
And we also get just that really this interesting thing, and of course, I felt like, I felt like I saw it coming a mile away, and then he survived the firefight, and I was like, oh, maybe they will like let him, and then of course, talk about
literally crushed by capitalism,
crushed by the not by the battle, not by the empire, but by the weight of the imperial greed, literally.
And it's the most idealistic guy, of course, too.
Right. But and all of these things, right? All of these things still pay off, right? Like he has in the episode 4, he spends like a whole minute talking about the you know, what we all, a lot of the fans have been calling out as a Polaroid, an old Polaroid camera, which is his map, basically his navigational
That was
device.
in episode 5.
Was that 5? Okay, that was in 5.
Because episode 5 was, we keep going back to 6 because it was the more exciting episode, but episode 5 was the calm before the storm,
right?
Philosophical episode that Michael in the comments before we even started talking about that brought that up, and how it was that insurgents don't get the privilege of morals, and you know, the young, inexperienced, idealistic person, and
but also
that's what stood out.
It's the analog device that he's like, you know, also talking to the interworkings of the Empire's process of getting the locals to be dependent on Imperial devices, like their Starpath technology, which only works with the Empire support, basically likening the Empire to Apple. And he, of course, has his patched together little Polaroid Starpath device, which is harder to use, but is unrestricted by the technology, and of course becomes the only way they end up surviving getting out of the eye, because it's not stuck under the Empire's scanning devices.
Yeah, he's the dude with the jailbroke phone, you know.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, we saw what's his name, Skeen. He had a prison tattoo, right? And what was the one on his forearm meant something as well, because he was surprised that Cassian recognized it.
It was something like the hand or something like that.
Right. It was like his gang, like it was like almost like a gang affiliation type tattoo that identified him as belonging to a certain group. And I think like knowing what we know about Skeen from episode 6, like if you go back and watch all of Skeen's reactions to Andor and different things that Andor says, it makes so much more sense. Yeah. Just his small cues. I don't know if there's like a compilation of just like Skeen's expressions somewhere.
Okay, internet, do your thing. Someone make it.
But
is this the same hand that's mentioned in Solo? Is it the same group?
It's the head of a crate dragon, and one's a barcode.
Right. The one on his chest was the barcode, which
right.
implies that he had been through
the
penal system.
And then there's a crate head above the barcode, crate dragon head, which is a relic of the Tusken Raiders.
Why the chest? That seems like a really inconvenient place to check someone's barcode anyway. Like the practicality of that. Why wouldn't you do it on a wrist? Sorry, Rodney, you were saying.
No, it's okay. Yeah, he actually, I listened to him on one of the Watch podcasts. They had him and interviewed him, and he was even going into detail saying that the lore masters or the prop people described that built a whole backstory behind his tattoos, that like it was from one of the porcupine type of races, and they took the quills from the porcupine race and used that to tattoo him. Yeah, and so it was really, really fascinating, and I know this is kind of jumping, but then he even said in that podcast that the blaster that he has is Greedo's blaster. Which
just the prop though, not in the continuity of the story.
So he was told by the prop master that it is Greedo's blaster, that somehow
so the
Greedo would end up with it.
Oh, interesting.
That's what he was told. But now there's speculating. I did some more research on the internet, and people are wondering if it's just the same model, or if it's the blaster. So we'll see. But
I mean, it's probably the same prop, but whatever story they decide for it, maybe that is yet to be decided by the Star Wars Story Group.
Oh, did I lose my camera?
No,
it came back.
Oh, you're back. Oh, good. Let's see here. What are some other moments that, I mean, there were so many amazing character moments. Oh yeah. Okay. We get to see more with Cyril Karn, back home. I think it's on Coruscant. It's also, some people seem to think that he might be on the oh gosh, what's the other planet? The other city planet, that later becomes the capital. Anyway, that's not that important. But we see space serial as he's no that's an older scene. What is it that happens? More just more him kind of fighting with his mother, and they're all blending into one for me. Honestly,
well, it starts with a beautiful shot actually of him very melancholy ish,
right,
staring at this sunrise, and I feel like there's some symbolism in there that we might see further down the line when it comes to that sunrise, because the next thing we know, he's sitting across from his mother at the table and she's just like henpecking him, right? And
right.
Yeah.
I had an ex with a mother like that.
But he's obviously he's more feeling, I think, than a lot of your typical Imperial officers. He's obviously he's just staring at the hologram of Andor's mugshot, and it's like he's trying to get inside the head of this guy. Like somehow he's become obsessed with this guy, and it's going to be almost like this Batman Joker type. He just can't. Now, granted, I don't think he's on Andor's radar, but I think at some point he will be. But so right now it's pretty one-sided. But I think that's kind of what they're getting towards, is that they're not going to be able to get away from each other, at least during the course of this particular storyline.
Well, of course, and this is of course the theme of this episode, because the title of this episode is the axe the axe forgets, but the tree right. Sorry, go ahead, Lexi.
Oh no, that's what I was saying. The tree remembers, but the axe forgets.
Right, and
which we inherently remember who have harmed us, but not who we have harmed, right? And which also kind of
aware. Sometimes people aren't even aware of the harm they cause.
Right, and Andor, I think, has absolutely no idea that he's caused harm to this guy, and basically no, granted, this was also his own doing because he insisted on going when his superior officer told him not to. But does Cassius have any idea that he has been the axe for this guy's tree? Absolutely not. Does he have any idea? Even further down the line, he's shown a willingness to kill for to protect himself. I mean, he doesn't know what tree killing those two guards in the very first episode may have caused. And I think that Michael's saying in the comments that he hopes that the rebellion operates in shades of gray instead of being like this, these good guys, compared to evil. And I think that that's exactly what the Cassian Andor storyline is doing, is it's showing those shades of gray in a way that we've never seen with previous Star Wars series or movies before when it comes to the rebellion.
What was it? I think with the first arc, there was people that were talking about how we're seeing parallels with Cassian Andor's story and Les Mis, and I mean, I feel like that him staring into the hollow of the mugshot of Cassian is pretty much our Javert moment.
Yeah, it very much is. Yep.
And Cassian is our Jean Valjean.
I just wanted to steal some credits. No, I don't know.
Just want to find his sister.
It was just a loaf of bread for my sister. Yeah. The reason I really loved in particular the title, The Axe Forgets, is because it not only refers to, as Tracy said, on a character level, where who do your actions harm that you haven't even realized, but also referring really directly to the Empire, because the Empire is this big, it's not a person, it's this big impersonal machine. It's a tool. The axe is a tool, and the axe is just doing what it does. It does not even care
Empire
what it does to the trees, which is kind of echoes what Cassian said to Nemec, which I think it would have hurt me more if Cassian had to say goodbye to him, but the inheriting of the manifesto was also just like, oh
Yeah. Ooh, gut
uh,
punch.
oh. But it kind of echoes what you pointed out that he said, Andy, where he's like, yeah, I mean, you would be right, except the Empire doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have another parallel with that for Skeen himself, as he's talking about who knows if it's true or not. I mean, you know, but he does say that he doesn't have a brother at the end of it, but he claims that, you know, the Empire murdered his brother. They also talk about who was it? The leader of the mission also had her whole family killed by
Val.
the Empire. Val, right?
Oh yeah.
And of course, they are all nothing to the Empire. They have no idea of the grudges that are held and how personal the rebellion is to many of its members.
I got kind of a laugh, like retroactively, out of the fact that Luthen was all worried. He's like, I didn't vet Cassian Andor well enough. I didn't vet that guy well enough. I'm like, but you picked Skeen.
Yeah.
Apparently, you let that one slip through your radar too, my guy.
I mean, we don't know though, right? I mean, we know that he has a relationship with Val, but
I wonder,
has he even met the others on the team?
maybe not. Oh, you know what? He probably hasn't, because she asked Cassian not to talk
Not to
about
mention.
him,
Right.
which implies they don't know.
But she
I mean-
also didn't seem
But here's the
surprised
thing,
when Cassian.
It also sounds like she,
Sorry, go ahead.
like I feel like she had to run these people by him,
Hmm.
you know, because it seems like she's been reporting back to him regularly and not telling everybody else that she's got a higher up to report to.
Right.
And it seems so weird that he would be like, I wasn't careful with this one guy, and I'm like,
Do you think that Luthen recognized that Skeen was not necessarily a good apple and wanted Cassian in there to almost compensate for him? Because Vel did not seem super surprised. Like, she seemed surprised at first, but then, I mean, Cassian basically said like a 2-sentence thing and she was like, oh, okay. You know, and it became very clear that he plays on people's sympathy and empathy in order to manipulate them, but none of it is real. His own story is not real. The reason why he wants to get help for Nemec is not real. He just wants to have an opportunity to go to a place where he can separate from, really, the only one who's left is Vel. I mean, he doesn't know that Nemec is gonna have the long sleep, Paul. And but he's ready to take off without them. And you almost wonder what he had planned prior to Cassian being there, because it's not until Cassian admits that he's getting paid for it that you see Skeen's face change. And it's almost like he's having to completely reevaluate his whole plan, because he was just going to try and take off by himself with it. And instead he sees that he can't, he can't be a pilot. So who else was he going to try and team up with to make off with the money? Because it seems like that was his goal the whole time, was to just make off with as much of the money as he could.
I mean, it seemed almost okay. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't be totally wrong with this, but I mean, to me, it seemed like there was a certain amount of opportunism, right? It's like if the mission had gone on well and more of the team had survived, I don't know that he would necessarily had made a play for everything. I think it was more like, well, now we're down to 2 and he's a mercenary as well. What the hell? You know, maybe this, you know, do I really want to die for this cause? Here's an opportunity. Because, you know, and it is interesting that we have Skeen, who's, you know, kind of one step from being a mercenary, has a whole revenge plot as far as the team knows, right? Then you have Vel, who has her revenge story. You know, you have what's the other woman's
Cinta?
name? Cinta, we know very little about. We it's implied that she might have a relationship with Vel. We know Tamarin, or we are told that Tamarin is a former stormtrooper, which is interesting, of course, makes him questionable in terms of his loyalty, as well as, of course, the Lieutenant Gorn, who is still enlisted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, going into this, it is such an interesting motley crew of people.
Gorn's an officer.
Okay, he's an officer.
Yeah, he's the officer that I think there's a note of him having been one of the people on site the longest.
Right.
Yeah.
7 years, I believe.
Yeah,
7
you were one of the
years.
first stationed here, or whatever
Yeah.
the line was.
Do
And
we
he had
think
seen
that
the eye twice before?
I believe they.
do we think that Terramin really is a stormtrooper? Really was a former stormtrooper? Because the people in the chat are talking about how how Andor is correcting the marching, and is Andor wrong to correct him because he was the former stormtrooper, or is he not really a former stormtrooper, and Andor is correcting him because he doesn't really know what he's doing, or maybe he was just a stormtrooper for a short time but like flunked out of basic? Like, what do we?
No, nobody said he was high ranking and knew his shit.
I mean, that when I took it at face value, I mean, I just kind of went internally, okay, that actually does make sense for him to have been a stormtrooper and basically be a front infantryman, and having gotten out from under the command structure, is hungry for his own command. But ultimately, he really was just a cannon fodder, right? Which is why he's not quite as in tune to the other people in the unit. He doesn't kind of pay attention to who's shooting left, who's shooting right, the way Andor does. And those points of efficiency are not necessarily tactics that a cannon fodder infantryman,
A grunt. He
would
was
be
probably a
in tune
grunt,
to, right? Yeah.
and maybe bitter about it.
That was actually another great just kind of character moment, like ways to establish Andor's, necessity to this mission, right? As they're going through all the different training montages, he's learning the process and learning the plan, and he's able to, he's just more observant, he's more keyed in to tactically where advantages are than the rest of them are. I mean, that was just also just very interesting to kind of establish, how somewhat in over their heads this rebel cell is, right?
And he kind of says that several times, where he's like, just at different points, like with things like realizing that they didn't know all the ins and outs of flying the transport, and he's like, what would you guys be doing without me?
Yeah.
Yeah, going back to some of the other characters, they do say something about Cinta that he does reveal that Tamron was a former stormtrooper. Skeen does say, hey, when she found out, or she was basically, the stormtroopers killed her whole family. So there's that little tidbit of information. I do think that they more than imply that Vel and Cinta were a couple.
Oh yeah, I
Because,
picked that up.
they did say, hey, she shares a blanket with somebody else, and then that little handhold in episode 6, pretty much, it was pretty.
Yeah, they just left her behind. What was the plan with
Okay.
Cinta?
Yeah,
I want
but
to
she
talk about
blended
that.
in,
She was
right?
supposed to mind the hostages.
Yeah.
I know,
Okay.
but what were they going to come back later and pick her up? Like, was she
Okay.
supposed to fend for herself?
So that in the last moments of the episode 6, we see her walking away. We see her
Well,
looking kind
sure.
of teary-eyed. Do we think she killed everyone?
You mean all the hostages, like the wife and the kid, and
Yeah.
I think she killed everybody.
That's what I was thinking too, and I was like, wait a
Because
minute.
she would have
They didn't
to,
show it,
because
but
if
it's like
she's-
this implication, and it's like, oh my god, that is so dark.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
if she's masquerading as an Imperial officer, the only way for that to work is if everybody, all the witnesses
No one
are
can
dead.
ID her,
No one can
And-
ID her.
Yeah,
and they
nobody
just
can.
killed a
Right.
kid on Star Wars.
Yeah, so they just killed the kid. I mean,
Off screen.
Oscar. Yeah,
Plenty of kids die off screen in
order
Star Wars.
66 in reverse.
Yeah.
like
And of course, they had the moment with her and Vel, and Vel's like, "Are you sure you're okay?"
yeah. That was really good. That kind of goes back to my saying, like the direction of the writing.
Yeah.
There's little small little moments, like the handhold, the just her looking at each other, and you can see in Giselle's face where she's scared shitless, you know, and just all those little small moments are just, I mean, just overall just building such a great
so much
storytelling.
Anxiety.
Yeah.
I needed a Valium after episode 6. God.
But I do think that she killed everybody.
Yeah. I got that sense too.
I
I just wasn't sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the deal.
But
Especially
again, she's still on the planet. Are they going to come back? Like, is the plan to come back for her at some point? Like,
I mean, I imagine eventually, but I mean, for now, her job is to just blend in, right? Because her alibi is anyone who is part of the plot. Probably they would think left on the ship. So now they're just focused on tracking down the ship. She's actually in the safest place.
Yeah, she's right where they all think she won't be.
unless the Empire comes in and destroys all the locals because just as retribution for what happened.
Yes, the indigenous ginger people of the planet.
Hey, they almost looked Sami to me, which is the indigenous people of Norway.
Of Norway, like the ones
sure.
like the people that got featured in the second Frozen.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm just joking because it was like it's so clearly the Scottish Highlands where they're shooting, so it's like, hey,
it's the Trossachs men. They just missed the giant black slugs. There are giant black slugs in the Trossachs.
Oh, that would be good for Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right?
However, we do have the four-horned sheep with nerves of steel that can resist a TIE fighter flyby.
Yeah, those are
They like spray painted them black and added like 2 horns.
I've seen horses that are less bomb proof than that, man. Like, that's impressive.
Let's see here. What are some other things we want to get into? We got into Tamarin a little bit.
Can we, I know we're kind of going back and forth between episode 5 and 6.
Can I jump back to the four-horned goats really quick?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's an Austrian goat breed called a Wehrhornzeiger.
Oh.
So it's actually a real creature.
Wow.
Well, they have 4 horns and they added
Oh, so
a
there's
fifth
6
and
horns.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like they probably used the Wehrhornzeiger goat.
Yes.
If anybody
they
knows
did.
Austrian and can tell me how to pronounce it. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, please feel free.
I don't know, that sounds pretty good to me.
Oh, okay.
But-
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I know we're kind of skipping back and forth between episode 5 and 6, so I have to say my favorite part of the whole thing
Do it.
is them getting into the TIE fighters.
Oh God, it's a gorgeous shot. Absolutely gorgeous.
So good.
shot.
Like I when that was happening, I looked over at Ian and I was like, oh, I love this part. I love this part because you so often just see them leaving almost like a hive from a central point, whether it's a star destroyer or whatever, planet or whatever, and to see them actually I mean, I know that they showed this before. This isn't the first time they've shown how they get into a TIE fighter, but
might be actually first time
no,
in
I feel like I've seen it before.
First time in live action. I
Oh,
feel
maybe
like
a
Might
cartoon.
have just been
Yeah.
animated before.
But it's just so cool, like how they did it with the catwalks and the joined on the ladder and opening the hatches, and it was
the way
just I don't
it's
know.
silhouetted by all the by the eye and the also seeing how messy it is, right, as they're kind of dropping through the hatch. And
Do you thought it was messy? See, I thought it was like gorgeously choreographed. Like,
I mean, gorgeously choreographed to be messy. I mean, I don't know, messy to me in terms of it's
chaos.
not. Yeah, right. Because as they're flipping the switches and kind of dropping in from the hatch, it kind of feeds into like something that I also noticed. Like we haven't seen a single stormtrooper yet, right? Like every soldier is still very human and very fallible, just to help keep things a little gray and to keep the Empire. This Empire has a face every time.
because
They're
they're all
just not
stationed at Alkenzi.
Right, but I mean, I can't think of where we haven't had a stormtrooper. Yeah, presence at all.
Usually the stormtrooper is the nondescript face of the Empire, you know?
Right. But so far we've had corporate security and a bunch of grounds soldiers that have
Gray coats.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah that's a Star Wars thing.
That's a
I
good-
was
that's a
also-
good term for 'em, yeah.
I was also I wasn't expecting to be kind of wowed by the eye either. I don't know why, but I think because it's like, well, what can they do that they haven't done before? So I was like, and when they first started showing, the crystals shooting across in episode 5, I was like, okay, so it's going to be more of this. That's cool, whatever. But I was surprisingly almost moved
Yeah.
Well,
by the effect of the eye and how it looked like this iris of a god almost.
It felt like that mixed with like Aurora Borealis kind
Yeah.
of feels, I think that was a smart choice by the production designer, because ultimately, I don't know who exactly designed that, but I know the production designer had to sign off on it. So good job, production
Yeah,
designer.
it's like, who comes up with that? I mean, that's Emmy worthy, honestly.
That was gorgeous.
We've got current and former military in here, like like pointing out all the things that they did wrong, like the military capacities.
Well, no wonder they couldn't stop the fucking disorganized rebels. They were fucking up all over the place.
It's like in high security areas, there are set times when abnormalities automatically set off a security alert. The second the comm guy lost communication, he would have set off a security alert. Hashtag Michael Roon's Star Wars. We've got them talking about the marching and the weapons holding, and we've got all kinds of things in the chat here.
What did they say about the weapon holding? I got to go back and pay attention to that.
You should,
Were they like too like high like?
Let's see. Not the way so they're talking about one small detail I noticed was the way the former stormtrooper was teaching them how to march. If you're former military, you know how to march. Who the hell is Andor to try and correct him? The other one saying, Paul saying, I was thinking the same thing. Not to mention the way they are marching is completely ridiculous, but distant galaxy and whatnot. And then Paul's like, he should have known the right position to be in to hold his weapon. Michael's like, I know, right? Details, Hollywood details. Like only something someone who has never served would assume.
Well, okay, just to give them the benefit of a doubt.
Okay, so he just said everybody is right-handed in the military.
Yeah, I mean,
is that true?
I would.
I mean,
when marching,
I would take that in the sense that like when you have to do anything, they make you do right-handed. Okay, I did not even close to the military, but I did like California Rangers, which is like used to be like a mounted drill team. And it actually used to be like the California, back when it was all boys, it used to be like the California Boys Cavalry Reserve kind of something. I'll have to look it up. It's been years. But so they have very like military standards. And it did not matter that I was left-handed. I would have to do things right-handed.
Sure.
I mean, when you watch video of people actually marching, they all are holding their weapon the same way. There's no crossing over.
Yeah.
I just to give the benefit of the doubt, though, I mean, I felt they did kind of lay some groundwork in terms of how arrogant and how cocky the Empire is, right? I mean, this is still supposed to be a big base that carries most of the Empire's payroll comes through here. Like, what did they say? Like 800,000 credits? 800 million.
An entire sector.
Credits, right? Comes through here, and of course there's only a garrison of about 40 troops, and these are not even stormtroopers, right? So that's like still speaking to kind of
it's like Fort Knox.
Yeah,
but if Fort Knox was guarded like shit,
yeah, because they don't care, because they're like there's just primitives here, yeah,
right?
I felt like a lot of
I mean, not necessarily accurate comparison, like socio-political, but kind of in and obviously there's a lot more, but very streamlined, but like kind of like a Pearl Harbor sense where it was just like, oh yeah, like we're stationed out in the South Pacific, nothing's gonna happen here,
right?
Although that was one country versus another, which is why I was like, that doesn't really hold up, but just the thought of like the US as the empire going, oh, we've just got some guys stationed out there, they're like technically important, but
Well, and of course, so we have, J-Hold Bihaz, who is literally fat. They actually make it a point to have the little scene where his dress uniform isn't fitting.
Oh, don't you love how he himself got backhanded after he threatened to backhand his kid?
Right, and that's the whole thing of,
Karma,
I don't care if you're sick, you got to get up and do the thing, because I know you hate it here and I hate it here too. So let's get the promotion so we can get off of here, right? That this is like the post that everyone basically hates. So they've got a bunch of.
It was almost like
troops.
he had to check himself to remind himself to be like a normal human being for a second. Like he's being brainwashed by, the system that he works in. And when he sees, his son recoil, it's only then that he has to kind of remind himself, oh, this is a kid. I'm a dad. This is not one of my subordinates I'm talking to. This is,
Right.
Anyway.
As we've seen, the empire does not great fathers make.
Yeah.
Kind of lacking in the dad department. Daddy issues. Star Wars is, I feel like you see so many major franchises that are centered around mommy issues. So it's kind of refreshing to see Star Wars keep on the daddy issues train.
I don't know. You look at Keen and he's got some mommy issues.
I'm not saying yeah. He definitely has mommy issues. But there is no daddy, which also implies
oh, well.
It's like reverse. Right. It's like reverse standard Disney, where it's like instead of the mom dying, the dad's gone.
Well, I mean, it would seem that that's another good reason for Disney to pick up both Star Wars and Marvel, to balance out the mommy issues with the daddy issues.
The daddy issues. Now they've got the full package, man. You want mommy issues? We got them. You want daddy issues? We got them.
But of course, also we meet Colonel Pettigar. Pettigar, who, very interestingly enough, is the one to defend the kid when Vel and Cintas are doing the kidnapping, right? Which is like that. Yeah, that was.
He's an engineer. He's not like a
right.
It's not like he's like a
hardened
general,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. And he seemed more like, I mean, he seemed to just be there for the eye, really, as opposed to any, it's not,
right.
I don't know if they were planning on him being, doing an inspection or something, but he really, I mean, he broke out his camera and everything. And, Philosopher King in the comments is bringing up a lot about how, he's there to enjoy this event, and it's showing the Empire taking advantage of these people, for these people, it's almost like a religious experience for them, and they're going to prevent the Empire is going to prevent them from ever being able to see it again. And and they're obviously not telling these people. And
the casual, I mean, it really does fit with that whole theme of how a superpower comes in and colonizes.
Yeah.
Where they're do they know this is the last year they're going to be up there? No, but we've been pushing this other event down the hill, and they'll deal with it,
Yeah, I love that whole exchange. And basically
they literally give them alcohol.
Yeah, that made me so angry. That was really reminiscent of of what the United States did to Native Americans.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm getting at. They gave them alcohol, and
because I mean, that hasn't happened with every conquest, but it definitely did with this country. So I feel like that was kind of I really love those subtle nods to that, to not just generalize
to how the systems work, right?
Yeah, but absolutely how these systems of colonization and imperialism work, but not just in general. These couple of specific references, oh yeah, we set up, hospitality,
the slow
points,
takeover.
kind of thing. Like we set up hospitality points and we got them drunk and now they're not coming. And like, so that thing directly referencing Native Americans. And there was that whole first episode, like space wetback comment.
It's right.
You know, and it's like all these little things that are very specifically about how the US treats, you know, people who are not
I mean, the whole
white
legacy
immigrants.
of England's, you know, basically throughout the world.
Yeah, that British colonial legacy, Western European colonial legacy.
Right.
But the Empire is also learning that, like, if you come in, you know, if you come in guns blazing, people are going to rise up, right? Whereas if you go in and slowly roll these things out, and they don't even realize it's happening until it's too late.
Kind of like how, oh man, that really brought to mind a line where one of the officers goes, well, you know, you just give them all of these options and they're so busy parsing their options, but they don't realize you haven't actually offered them anything they want.
Yeah.
That was one of Nimic's lines where he was talking about how everyone is just kind of dazed by all the things that are happening that they can't focus on any one, right?
Yeah,
which is God. We don't know what that's like at all.
But it ties into it. Like so Nemec's comment is like the receiving end, and then there's the Imperial comment where he goes, well, you know, the thing is, you just offer these people choices, and you offer them an abundance of choices, and they're so busy choosing that, you know, implied being they're so busy feeling like they are a little empowered. You give them a false sense of empowerment, and then they forget that.
Although I feel like the chieftain guy sees through that. I feel like he knows. He can't talk everybody else into it, but he knows. Yeah.
Well, that was a very cool moment too, where we have of course oh God, why am I Gorn acting as the
you're not the only one.
Gorn acting as the translator, and of course the chief is talking basically directly to him, saying, you know, hopefully you have some kind of conscience. And of course, Gorn,
maybe it was like his daughter that Gorn fell in love with.
Right.
It was killed.
I would love that. That would be great.
And of course he's like, yeah, there's no way, you know, the boss is gonna pick up any of the nuance of what he's saying. I'm just gonna tell him. He says, thank you.
How much were you like in the shootout? And I was like, I literally said, you know, I was like, of course the two black guys are the ones that die.
I know.
Like in the shootout.
Like, oh
Why did you do that?
Oh.
You guys were doing so good with breaking stereotypes. Why did you kill the black guys?
They're the only ones who die.
And you're like, oh no.
Well, no, we did lose our pretty little white boy. We lost,
but that was later. Like he made it through that.
He didn't. He wasn't the first one to die. He didn't uphold it. Like if he
it wasn't until they hit the gas that he got crushed. He made it through the takeoff.
Yeah, he made it through the wilderness. He made it through. Man.
I think Gorn
fault because he was like, cover me, and he was like, pew.
Yeah, I think Gorn was the first one to die.
Yeah.
Gorn was,
Well, because as soon as they realized, you know, the cat was out of the bag. Oh, I also love that what's this? Leonard Bihas goes down from a heart attack. Just give him a little bit of hard labor, and I'm like, you know, okay, yeah, he's pushing a lot of money. However, those are on like hover pallets, so it's like there's no friction. Like, come on, dude.
He was the only one who was.
Eat a salad,
he did have a
for
heart
God's
attack.
sakes. Oh, it's funny.
You don't know his situation, Andy.
You know, he could have a heart condition that runs in the family, dude.
That's right.
Not like the Empire would care. Not like they'd exempt him from service for that. They don't seem to be the type who'd care.
But I mean, yeah, no, I joke, but I mean, honestly, it's still, I mean, there's so much texture, right? I mean, every little tiny thing is intentional and it feeds into a larger picture, right?
Speaking into it being intentional, the whole like, oh shit, it's all in these roles and it's really heavy, and now we gotta like, you know, have some hostages to move it, like all that thing really played into that initial like, oh, you guys there's a lot of holes in your plan here, isn't there?
I think that they knew that they were going to need those people, though.
Yeah,
that's the impression I got.
Yeah, but it didn't seem like they weren't able to load all of it in, because the whole plan was, we're going to steal an entire sector's worth of payroll. They did not
Okay,
get the whole
if I remember correctly, it was going to be their plan was to steal 200,000. And so when they said 800,000, I was like, wait, that's like four times as much as the original. So I don't know that they ever planned to get all of it. I think they wanted to get at least 200,000.
Yeah. 200,000 was referring to how much his payment was.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, Luthien said,
Oh, just
you'll
Andor's
out,
payment?
Yeah, you'll come out with 200,000.
Yeah.
That was his payment. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So here I'm looking at it going, did you guys not factor in how many people? Because like I'm sure they knew they needed to move some like hard currency, but it didn't seem like it seemed like that was one of those. Well, we'll just figure it out. We know we're gonna need it. We'll figure it out when we get there.
I think my impression of that was they didn't think they thought they're gonna have more time, and that extra patrols showing up screwed everything up. Right?
The extra patrol and their comms being discovered, that was difficult for them. That threw in some wrenches.
Well, because was Gorn ever actually planning on revealing himself, or did he had to adapt?
Escape. I think
he was going to jump ship with them if he could.
Yeah, because he had his great little moment of comeuppance where he's like, J-Hole basically says, "You'll hang for this." He's like, "Oh, I deserve way worse."
But I love that he said, I love that it was, I deserve worse for working for you.
Yeah.
Literally, like, solid. Man, I had this coming. This is like, which was just brilliant writing, because it's such a good way of saying, are you fucking kidding me? I'm redeeming myself with this.
Yeah, totally.
Well, and if all he had was this person that he loved, like, what else did he have to live for? Like he might, he's that just going to give his life. Why they killed him.
But I wish they hadn't killed both of the black guys, because that's
yeah.
Do we know what the amount of credits is, the annual median income for somebody in the Empire?
I don't know.
We don't.
I mean,
I'm sure somebody's
what is the Imperial exchange rate?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Philosopher King says 25,000 in the Outer Rim.
Credits,
wow.
Okay.
Oh,
so
the Outer Rim,
an Outer Rim is like
probably
95K on Coruscant.
Yeah.
95K on Coruscant.
And on top of that, too.
But Coruscant, I'd have to assume, is like living in San Francisco or New York.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Absolute bullshit and completely expensive. So
he made it up. Never mind. Philosopher King. I believed you. I trusted you.
I do want to come back. Okay, so we haven't really even touched on Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma yet.
Yeah, that's what the thing I was going to ask you guys, Andy, is leading up into this, like you guys were talking about, like, okay, what was their exit plan? I mean, obviously it's just a heist, but it's also part of a bigger thing, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're all saying, and the reason why she even gives them the manifesto is like, we're not just doing this to just become rich. We're doing this for a cause, right? And like Nemec is a believer, right?
And of course, early on, we establish that whole first conversation with Mon Mothma and Luthen is that it's harder for her to like sneak funds and siphon it away to the rebellion.
Did we know that she had a daughter before? Was that in the animated series?
No, this is new. Which adds way greater stakes, right?
Oh, so much. Oh man,
yeah. I was reading somewhere. I'd have to find the references to it, but I think she appears in the comics. Yeah, comics in the books. Yeah.
Oh.
So she's basically recanonized, but I mean, this is the first I had heard about it, her having a kid, which is like, oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Which means that she has to leave her kid, right?
I mean, and of course, in terms of live action, we've even actually in animated, we've only ever seen her on her own, right?
Right.
Yeah. Which when they put it in this context and they give her a daughter, then kind of recontextualizes the rest to how hard she tried to keep her family out of this mess.
Right.
And how much was, again, like you were saying, at stake from her. It completely changes her stakes.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was so funny that really raised the stakes for me on that family thing was how much like a normal teenage daughter her daughter was, where it was like, Mom, you don't even have to go. You just like you're just doing it for appearances, mother. You know, like the bratty teen who's just fed up with her parents' bullshit, and that was
well, and also, of course, how much she is really kind of the last person standing, right? I mean, even as the news, we're seeing like the news trickle out that the heist has worked, and like like this is probably the first time we've seen the Senate this empty,
so empty,
right? With just like she's just speaking.
It's like, guys, this is important.
It's also interesting too. You guys were talking about talking about the themes of if we like outright just marched on the locals, there would be outrage. It would lead to rebellion, and of course they're hinting at the Gormans, the Gorman uprising. Or the Gorman protest, not even an uprising, right? Which, God, I mean, that's out there. Like, I'm really now curious how much of that we're gonna see. I mean, at this point, we're probably gonna see the whole thing, which is gonna be.
I hope they show her leaving, and I hope that there's high stakes, right?
Yeah. Okay, so in case you don't know what I'm talking about, so the Gorman, she refers to the Gormans, and we got some mentions that the Gormans are a planet who have all their supply chains cut off by some of the other people in the Senate, and if you remember from Rebels, the inciting moment where she left the Senate and had to get evacuated by rebel cells was because she disavowed the Senate and basically spoke out against the Emperor for his action, basically marching troops on a peaceful protest from the Gorman people because they were starving and not getting food and supplies, and so that is something that is a very important point in history in the Star Wars lore that it seems we might be building towards.
Just out of curiosity, since it's 7:29, are we doing crosstalk?
It does not seem like we are.
Okay.
Question.
Just FYI, Danny Googled it, and it says Cora says that stormtroopers get paid $5 an hour.
What the fuck? Sorry.
And then Michael asked what the exchange rate is between USA dollars and fictional Imperial credits. Philosopher King says $1 is 0.80 credits, but I don't know if I can believe him.
Well,
and Michael's asking if that takes into account free housing, healthcare, food, etc.
Yeah, trust that one like you trust Jabba the Hutt.
I don't know if I can believe Philosopher King.
I mean, considering how much lightsabers have gone up at Batuu,
Dude.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic of the Disney price hikes, annual price hikes.
The other thing too is like, I mean, the other implication is like, okay, there's parts of the galaxy that don't use Imperial credits.
That's right.
Right, and just
we know there's still calamari flan, and there's
right. So it's just like but then also too, it's like they don't have direct deposit. Like,
Patrick.
Might be kind of hard to set up direct deposit when you can't even do like when it would like their comms are kind of like has some lag for the comms. I don't know, man.
I mean,
might be a lot to ask.
If you recall,
I want to say hi to Patrick Ballesteros. He's in the chat, and Patrick, you have to come and be a guest on our show.
Hello, Patrick.
Throw that out there.
But if you recall, remember one of the Clone Wars arcs that we did had to do with how Palpatine basically positioned things so that he could take over the banks, right? That was the whole thing with Clovis, right?
Yes.
And basically just
Man,
all shades of things coming together.
And the only time Padme really showed backbone to Anakin. And it was over her ex-boyfriend. I lost a lot of respect. Anyway.
Let's see here. Okay, it is 7:32. Are there any other things we want to get into? We've bounced around quite a bit. I think we've covered everything a little bit.
It's been like an Andor trampoline over here.
Yeah. I mean, but it is. I mean, I'm still feeling the structure of this where I can't help but feel like episode 4, 5, 6 are just a feature in 3 acts, right? Everything feels so cohesive to me.
For
all these
sure.
moments
They're like arcs,
pay off,
right? Like
yeah.
1, 2, 3 is one arc. 4, 5, 6 is another arc. You know, and yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely the structure. So that, I mean, what do you think is gonna happen next?
I mean, we're definitely going to see the fallout here, right? I mean, that's one of the things. Of course, at the end of this episode, we see the security bureau has assembled, incensed that this heist has gone the rebellion's way, and I mean, I'm wondering if we're now going to see a little more of Deidre, probably recruit Cyril Karn.
I hope so. That would be a good way to bring his character back into action.
Yeah.
And
They did have a shot of him looking longingly at the hologram of Cassian's face,
staring.
right?
Does it feel
right?
a little bit like Love Actually, where there's just it's like all these
It's
different storylines, and in the end they're all gonna just come together?
except it's just
Like
war.
Andor Actually.
Except war actually, yeah, Andor actually, war actually.
I think I should like edit that scene with him with like put the Eminem song, the
Oh.
the Eminem song, the stand underneath. He's just like staring longingly at it. Like,
Do it.
Also, we've also got Andor in a very interesting place where he's basically like, "Look, I'm not going to steal. I just killed your other guy. You don't really know the details of this, but I mean, I only want what I was promised. Take the stone back, give it back to Luthen, and I'm just gonna go, right?" But of course he has
really quickly. What did you guys think of that sort of backstab and the way Cassian resolved that? Like, I thought it was really well done. Yeah, I thought it was really,
bitch.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. And then the fact that
Little Western moment.
he kept saying it, right? He did say, he's like, "Look, I just want to get this, and I'm out of here."
Yeah,
like he kept saying, and he lived up to it, and by killing, he had to kill some people, but like,
Look,
But he also tried. He killed one, but he tried to save the other. Like there's a certain degree of honor there.
He didn't kill Skeen because he didn't give a shit. He killed Skeen because he's like, "Oh, you're gonna be too much trouble to deal with, and you're gonna be trouble to the only people who've been sort of nice. I mean, like the only
who believe in the cause.
The only people who wouldn't fuck Andor over are the people that Skeen's trying to fuck over. So he's like, yeah, it does not make sense to side with you. You're more trouble than they are." I think it was very practical on his part. Where he's like, "You're more trouble than they are."
How many times is like the Loki type character let off like with a slap on the wrist and a "don't do that again, good sir"?
Right.
And then in this case he was like,
though.
"No."
I think Andor's the Loki type character though in this, where he's like, "Look, I'm not bad, but I'm also just here for myself," and he's very honest about it. Whereas Skeen was the one who was lying about what he was there for.
I love that moment too, right? Where he's just like, "Look, I'm a mercenary, okay? Like, we're not going to get out of this alive if we don't get on the level with each other. We don't have to trust one another, but we have to be on some kind of level. So look, I'm a mercenary. I'm here for the money, and I'll get the job done." But it was like, that was a very cool kind of point of like, we're not going to be able to function without this.
I also love how, I mean, this was just kind of some schadenfreude on my part. There I go again, two episodes in a row using fun German words, but happiness is someone else's pain. So I had this little moment of schadenfreude when like Skeen's like, "Oh yeah," like, basically threatening / bribing him, and I'm like, you don't know that he absolutely just murdered the fuck out of 2 guards. And so when he just was like, "Oh, draw," and like shot him, I was like, "Yep, checks out. Sucks to suck."
I think he was seeing that the second Skeen was going to get a chance, he was just going to kill him and take all the money.
Well, exactly. But I mean, if he was kind of going back to what we were talking about, how it's really great that they're showing the necessity of like the functional necessity of moral ambiguity. And even though if it's kind of in a weird way that it's like, oh, sometimes the idealists die, like Nemec, crushed under the weight of capitalism, as you said.
But his ideas live on.
Yeah, but
And
yeah. What were you saying, Roger?
One real quick thing I was thinking about when you guys were talking about this, and maybe it's a little bit of a stretch, but what you were saying, Andy, is that his apology, right, was saying, "Hey, my brother was killed," and he ended up lying about that. Yeah. Whereas Cassian is looking for his sister,
right?
And he never mentions that to anybody.
Right? And so, like, in some ways, maybe he's like, hey,
he's triggered.
You made me believe in you and empathize with you by saying the brother thing. I connected you on that level.
Well, and particularly after the very reason that they go to the Dr. Forehands dude is because Skeen is the
Dr.
one who
Quad
says...
Paw, by the way.
Quad Paw. Tomato.
But the whole reason is because Skeen is the one who says, if without that kid, there is no rebellion, right? Mm-hmm. And it turns out that was all a ruse for him to just get people isolated and alone so he can do a double cross, which is like, woo!
Yeah, I mean...
So many layers to it, essentially, right? Yeah. Like he had many reasons to off the guy.
It was a Shrek number of layers, a full onion.
I only have one more thing to say, and that is that in episode 5, in the shop, it's just all Indiana Jones stuff.
That's right. The
everywhere.
Sankara stones.
All Indiana Jones.
The headpieces from the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah.
His whip, his boots are all carbonite. It's just like the golden monkeys, and it is just a plethora of Indiana Jones artifacts, and I just think that's hilarious.
Oh, okay. What did you guys think of any impressions or feelings of seeing
him laugh?
Yeah, just the sigh of relief when he hears that the plan worked.
It was like a Louise from Bob's Burgers evil laugh.
That was great.
Louise is my favorite.
I think it was like a favorite shot of it. It's very akin to the one shot where he turned on the charm, right? Yeah. When he was getting it's just that small moment, and it just his face is so expressive, and it was just great.
But it is also the moment where even the audience is now going, after all of the anxiety and the tension of that whole episode, where you're like, fuck.
Oh, I think he very much was sort of an avatar for the viewer in that.
Yeah.
we all got to have that little sigh of relief.
And of course, but even he says, and now it begins.
And now it begins. It was interesting because
then he takes off his wig and throws it on the floor and stomps on it.
Burns the wig. What? No. Yes. The eye, I thought, just kind of wrapping for my thoughts, and we were talking about layers, but I thought the eye was a very interesting choice for title because
sure,
the eye was a reference to the phenomenon they were witnessing, but it also kind of evokes the eye of the hurricane.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if this is the calm, what is coming?
Right. Yeah, a lot of allusions to coming storm, right? Mm-hmm. Even
stormtroopers. Sorry. I'm so sorry. No, I'm not. I'm not at all.
Don't be at all. No, but there was also a really great quote that he has right before he gets word of the heist, right? Where he's talking to that customer, and he's like, "Oh yes, this is an artifact from from a dead culture, and a long lost language." And she's like, "That's really sad that no one knows this language." And he's like, "No, this is an opportunity because it can say anything you want it to say," which is such a that says so much about his character,
mm-hmm.
right? In terms of, it's good stuff.
It's interesting.
Mute myself.
It's interesting because that. Some people would call that a tell, not a show, but I do call that a show, not a tell. Where it's this one little line that seems like it says one thing, but really it just informs you so much about his character, where he's not even trying to. It's a functional showing. Yeah, they were, man, yes, this thing was layered like a freaking onion, and I love it. Onions are nutritious, and they make everything taste better when you cook them.
But also, and nothing
I don't know
wasted,
where I'm going with that,
right?
y'all.
I mean, just nothing wasted, because that's the thing where like there are things sometimes you'll have
And
or
they use the whole
it'll
buffalo
set
here.
up, or if it's just an Easter egg, every Easter egg or every bit of dialogue paid off, right? Character wise.
Yeah, they used the whole buffalo here. I loved it.
I look forward to tomorrow night at midnight.
You stay
Let's see
up?
where they
Oh,
go.
I wait until Wednesday.
Yeah,
I work on Wednesday this particular week, so I might actually do the midnight deal.
I mean,
Power
and
to you
it's
guys.
going to be interesting to see. I mean, ultimately,
Comes an hour earlier for me.
I mean, like, you know, is it? I mean, you can't just have
No,
Andor sitting there reading the thing, right? It's like,
doesn't really at all.
I mean, he's gonna read it. We know, of course.
They're gonna have him opening it up, but I bet they're gonna have him opening it up and reading parts of it at strategic points, and it's gonna like feed into it. And actually, no, I still have to wait. I have to wait till 1 a.m. Might still do it.
I think Saw Gerrera is going to show up next arc.
Well, they still have to drop off these credits somewhere, right? I mean,
That
I mean,
might-
we're halfway. So
well, Vel does
six
anyways.
episodes.
It's just Vel.
halfway there.
So it's halfway point. So at
That's
least,
true. Can Vel fly this on her own now?
Yes.
Right. She
She's
can
the
fly
other
it.
pilot.
she didn't know how to do the rail.
Undo the latch.
Undo the rail
Yeah.
latch. Right.
and calculate the weight, blow bearing, and all that stuff, right? So, yeah, I think Saw Gerrera is gonna have to be soon. I mean, you know, so
That would make sense to bring Saw in there, because then that brings in a whole other level of extremist, a different side of the rebellion for Cassian to judge himself against. Great. This is good. Anything else from the chat? Anything else we need to address while I scroll down?
Oh, we're talking about all kinds of things, but it's kind of spoilery, so.
Okay.
And my typing was too loud. I had to be muted.
Intense typing.
Sorry.
So we're going to continue to get into Andor in the coming weeks. Next week we're going to come back and we're going to talk about episode 7. The following week. Wait, is that this week? This coming week? Yeah,
I won't be here next week.
His
Sorry,
hand
guys.
So next week we're going to talk about 7, and then the following Wednesday on the 26th is when Tales of the Jedi drops. So which means the following week we're going to have more stuff to talk about, because we're going to have some of the Tales of Jedi and more about the backstory of Ahsoka and more about Count Dooku, which is very exciting.
I can't. Every time I hear Dooku, I think of Dookie, and I can't every single
Thank you,
time.
Tracy, because I love his name, but I'm like, I love
What
him.
a shit.
Character, but I'm also like, really, Lucas?
It's like, please,
Come on,
Palpatine,
dude.
change my name to Tyrannus. I want something cool. I don't.
There's
wanna
that
be
thing about like,
Dookie.
if you want to create post-apocalyptic characters, just eat a mouthful of Oreos and say normal names, and whatever comes out. And I feel like Dooku is one of those names. Like you're trying to say like Jonathan, and it comes out as like Dooku because of your mouthful of Oreos. Anyway.
or it's like
David-
if you want to
David
do,
becomes-
or if you want to do like you know, Game of Thrones names, you just change an I to a Y. And, you know, Eric with a
One
Y.
Y, 2 N's, but it's not right.
Not what you
Ke-
think.
or Kevin
Oh,
with an
Madison.
A. Kevin.
I so wanted to see Madison one more time.
Spoiler alert, Madison's High Valyrian. She's gonna haul in a dragon. We're gonna do a crossover.
I ship it.
Okay, so
All right.
of course we want to see all of your Star Wars creations. Do you cosplay? Do you make fan films? Do you build droids, build models, sell stuff on Etsy, or do you just know Tracy and Tracy likes you? Show us how Star Wars has inspired you, and we might just feature you on the show. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're here on the Geekish Network every Monday night while Andor is running. Please follow Geekish Network on YouTube, Facebook, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for joining us here on this night. And check out the schedules for all the other great shows here on the Geekish Network throughout the week. There is no Geek Beast tonight. They are off for the week, but they'll be back on Friday. And support Nerdtastic Crew. Go watch Lumpia with a Vengeance. That is out in theaters in many cities Our good friend Earl Balin is in the film and also was one of the producers. There are many friends of the podcast here in this in the film. Go check that out. It's great fun. It's very
also
silly.
lumpia's delicious.
And lumpias are delicious. There's also a comic book adaptation out there, and I believe they, along with our other friends, Jen and Caitlin, are out there in the Bay Area. I think this last weekend they were at San Francisco Comic-Con doing some signings, so check them out. And come on back next week.
Episode of Caitlin's Comics.
Yeah. Thanks again on the flight deck to Rodney, who also came out and joined us for some of the discussion. And of course, we are Pod Squadron. Please check out our content on podsquadron.com. Like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For podcast subscriptions, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. I am Chinese Pirate, at Chinese Pirate _ on all platforms.
I am Tracy the Hot Nerd Girl. I have something in my eyeball, but if you Google Hot Nerd Girl, you'll find me.
Plenty of pictures without her with something in the eyeball. Joking Aesthetic. I forgot to mention I have a Facebook page. Again, I don't post a lot, but when I do, it's fun.
And also check out Beyond Forever Studios. That's Jason, who is not here with us, but is here in spirit. We feel him. We feel his presence. And always return to base. Course laid in and prepare to make the jump to lightspeed on my mark. And remember, the truths we cling to depend on your own point of view. Only the Sith deal in absolutes. Good night. Quinto Comics. That's right. Quinto Comics.
1S1I, but it's not where you think.